Hello, everybody. You can hear me, right? How's everybody doing in the chat? Hello, Whoop. Everybody. Yep, that's my own phone telling me that I can hear myself. That's great. Yeah, we're gonna give it like 3-4 minutes for other people to filter in real quick. Just quick update on me. Yes, I yeeted myself from Twitter last night because of all the nonsense that's going on, which is kind of what we're gonna cover partially in this with how I think the Rittenhouse case is a giant fucking distraction and it's full of bullshit and people are being led on by the media into a fucking trap and ignoring way more important cases that are going on around the country and a bunch of other stuff. So I will be talking about that. But yeah. Sorry if I seem a little weird today. My fucking fibro's been flaring up like a motherfucker due to stress and shit, so I feel like garbage. But yeah, we're gonna talk about a lot of things. So you just tell people that we're going live. Yeah, it's funny. Whenever I put out a tweet that just says like, "Hey, I'm going to be talking about something," like it gets like 100 people will see it and a bunch of people will like it. But if I link to my YouTube channel at all, it'll get like 4 likes, and then a bunch of people are like, "I had no idea you even had a YouTube channel." It's like, but I think we've given enough time. I think enough people have filtered in. So, kind of to the crux of this, there are 3 cases that we're going to be covering tonight. This is the cases of Casey Goodson. This is the case of Gerdhardt, and then Johnny Hurley. And I think all of these cases are really, really important to the Second Amendment, and they've gotten almost zero coverage, and nobody's really talking about them. And they've all been kind of buried under the shadow of the Rittenhouse trial. And my theory on the Rittenhouse trial is very similar to a video I released a couple months back called The Ongoing Bait and Switch of the George Floyd Trial, which you can search up on my channel. And the argument I made there is that you have instances of events that happen all the time in the country, police brutality events, Me Too kind of events, Second Amendment cases and everything like that. And they don't really ever get talked about. But very occasionally you have certain cases like the George Floyd case that blow up in the media, and there's these giant conversations and everything around them. And there's these massive debates and divisions and fights and bullshit over these cases. And the connection I see between all of these cases, between the Rittenhouse case and between the George Floyd case, is they always pick something that's not cut and dry, that's sloppy, that people can get into really aggressive arguments and debates over, and it'll cause as much division as possible. So I covered in that video of just how many instances of police brutality happened last year that the cops couldn't argue in their own defense whatsoever. Those didn't get media attention. But the George Floyd one, where people could argue that he actually died from drugs or all these other kind of arguments, I have my own opinions, but it's different, that blew up. And it's the same thing with the Rittenhouse case compared to these other ones. And that's kind of the case I'm going to lay here, to where the Rittenhouse case is very sloppy. It involves somebody going into essentially an active combat zone with a rifle to protect other people's property, and then everything goes to hell and a bunch of people get shot, and it's a clusterfuck. It causes debates, divisions, and everything like that, compared to these other stories that are way more cut and dry, that there's not much of a debate you could have over them. No one's talking about those. And we're going to kind of go through them one at a time. The first one I want to go through today, though, is pull it up right now, is the Lucas Gerdhardt case. Now, this one's crazy as hell to me because, I'll pull it up here. I did not hear about this till literally this morning. And this is kind of crazy to me, to where what happened here is Lucas Gerdhardt, he's a student at Lake Superior University. Well, Lake Superior State University. It's up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. What he did was he took a Snapchat photo of an AR-15 with the caption, "Taking this up, we'll see if this melts the snowflakes," or something along the lines of that. Let me see if I can pull up like the actual picture of it for you guys to see. But yeah, it says right here, taking this bad boy up. This ought to make the snowflakes melt, a question mark. And I mean snowflakes as in snow. So he sent this to Snapchat. I think if I remember the case study, he sent it to either a group or a friend or something like that. A second party somehow saw this, whether it was shared to them or whether it was screenshotted and passed along, and reported him to campus police. Now, an important detail about this is that on LSSU, you are allowed to have weapons if they're registered, because it's the fucking Upper Peninsula of Michigan. You can look up stories like bears wander into campus and shit up there. It's wild. So he posted this, and then in the process of going to the campus to register this AR-15, like he was literally walking into the building to register this firearm, he was arrested. And what was he arrested for? Fucking terrorism charges. We're gonna actually go to the article here. Yeah, right. A Lake Superior State University student who made threatening social media posts has lost his appeal, according to court records from Michigan State Court. Lucas Gerdhardt, a 21-year-old Oakland Township man, was arrested after adding an image to his Snapchat story depicting an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle. He added the text, "Taking this bad boy up. This ought to melt the snowflakes." Yeah, he was arrested after 2 LSU students reported this post to public safety and charged with making a threat of terrorism. And the Court of Appeals disagreed, noting the bayonet affixed to his rifle and the current political context as factors in their decision. Gerdhardt will still face charges in Chippewa Circuit Court. So now you might kind of see why I'm bringing up this fucking case. So all of y'all that take pictures of your guns and you know, say things like in Minecraft and all of that, you could be charged under terrorism charges. I think that's an important thing to discuss. And what concerned me the most about the Gerdhardt case is seeming I just heard about it. And I usually have my nose to the grindstone on stuff like this. I have, FPC on notifications. I have Gun Owners of America on notifications. I'm subscribed to an RSS feed that's important gun cases in America. I haven't heard of this case. And I even went and, love all y'all very much, but I'm known to throw stones at everybody and I don't give a fuck. I went to Twitter and I searched up to see if FPC had ever said anything about this case. No. I looked up if the NRA had said anything about this case. No. I looked up Gun Owners of America. I looked up all of these like big, accounts that handle firearms law. Nobody had mentioned this once. And you think it'd be important of if somebody taking a picture of a rifle would result in them getting charged with terrorism would be important to discuss. Yet nobody's mentioned this. And like I said, even I just found out about this. And that's very concerning to me. And this kind of goes to, the 3 things I'm going to point out that are so important that nobody's talking about. This is the first one, and that's pre-crime. You're seeing instances, whether it be the Daniel Baker thing, whether you see it the John Slavinski thing, whether you see it's the Lauren Reed case, where people are being charged with pre-crime. They hadn't explicitly or directly threatened anyone. They hadn't carried out any actions. And even the things that they posted were benign. And yet they are being arrested and charged with terrorism because guns are involved. That's going to be really important going forward. So with story number 1, with the Gerdhardt case, you have pictures or possession of a firearm if can be misconstrued or sold to the state as terrorism. So that's the Gerdhardt case. Next, we're going to move on to the Casey Goodson's case, which I think is another kind of important thing that everybody forgot about. This happened last year, and I almost forgot something. I do need to pull one thing up real quick. Sorry. Peak professionalism. Boop, 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 boop. This was the only tweet I could find about this, which it's funny because it's from Rikita Media, who's kind of like huge right now because they're the ones that are primarily covering the Rittenhouse case. This is the picture of the person who reported Gerdhardt to campus police for terrorism. This is a picture of the same woman with a shotgun on LSSU property posting a picture. The caption, "Gotta stay strapped or get clapped." Technically, under the same law, she could be charged with fucking terrorism. So this is an important little detail. Is the person that saw his Snapchat story and reported to campus police also has pictures of themselves posing with firearms. And we can go to the image that they kind of construed that having a bayonet was a sign of him having terroristic threats or whatever. Let's see if I can blow this up bigger. Yeah, this is literally just a picture of a rifle on a kit with a bayonet on it. And that's what they construed. So I consider that important. I consider that people should be talking about this, that this kid should be getting legal representation, and the Second Amendment community should be shitting the bed about it. Yet nobody's talking about it. Nobody's talking about it. So now we will go to the Goodson case. Now, Casey Goodson, black guy in Columbus, Ohio. Pull it up real quick. Boom. All right. Boom. So here's what we know about the Casey Goodson Jr. Fandal police shooting. So the story of Casey Goodson is in Columbus. There was a call reported in to Columbus police that somebody was driving around in a vehicle waving a handgun outside the window. That's all they knew. So they reported to the rough area that they, where the call came in from, where they thought this person was, and started patrolling the area looking for a car with somebody that was armed. Casey Goodson had just got to his house. Now Casey Goodson is a registered CPL holder. He, all of this shit's legal. He has no criminal record and had nothing to do with this. As was later found out, he was not in the vehicle. He was not the person that was reported. He was nowhere in that area at that time. Casey Goodson is walking up from his car to the front door of his house with like a bag that has Subway sandwiches in it or something like that, and his pistol on his hip in a holster. The police pull up to the area, and an important detail about this is there's been no dash cam footage from the police cruiser, nor any body cam footage released of this detail, so we just have to take the cops' word for it. They pull up to the area, apparently have a very brief verbal exchange with Casey, and then shoot him in the back while he is unlocking the front door of his house, to the point where his keys to his house were still in the door when he was shot and killed. So I consider this important to the state of the Second Amendment, because the cops, if they get a call to an area, like a general location, and they are looking for a suspect that they believe is armed, particularly, probably, there's a bit of the element of, if you're a black dude and you're in this area armed, open carrying, concealed carrying, whatever, and you have a gun, the cops will immediately open fire upon you and kill you. Because, like I said, there's no evidence, and even the police say that Casey didn't pull the gun. Casey didn't point the gun at them. They didn't do any of that. The police say that they pulled up, they told him to drop the gun, and then immediately fired on him and killed him. So if you were in the wrong place in the wrong time as a gun owner, and the police are looking for someone armed, they will shoot and kill you. And again, I only heard of the Casey Goodson case from local BLM activists. It wasn't even covered nationally. I think there was like a couple big accounts made one or two posts about it or something, but that's it. So only local BLM talked about it. No one in the Second Amendment community talked about it. Once again, I searched all the big accounts with the keywords Casey Goodson, nothing. So we have, if you take a picture of your gun, you can be arrested for terrorism. And then if you're in possession of a firearm in anywhere near a crime scene, the police can open fire on you immediately, which is going to be important when we go into the final kind of thing here, which is the Johnny Hurley case. Now, the Johnny Hurley case, I'm currently writing an article about, and this will kind of tease towards that. This will kind of hint towards the Johnny Hurley case. But I think if you take all three of these together, you kind of start getting a picture of what the Second Amendment is actually like in the United States, and it's not good. So going into, that's funny. Oop, I see it in. So going into Ford Fisher's thread on the Johnny Hurley case. So we're going to kind of walk this through. This is the same thing I do in the article. We're going to walk through what exactly happened to Johnny Hurley and the timeline as we understood it, because that's what I do in the article, and that's what I'm going to do here. So essentially, on the 25th, well, sorry, not the 25th. So I don't get the date wrong. Just hang on. Boop, 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 boop. I don't want to screw this up. So one second. Just trying to be concise as possible with the information. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, so yeah, so it was June 21st was when this shooting happened. So the details of this, and we have footage that I'll go over through this because I'm going to kind of break this down even further than the last two, is that you had essentially an anonymous call, an anonymous tip into Arvada PD that a individual had been walking around Old Town Square where this all happened, and he approached the caller, said something strange to them that wasn't made out, and then showed them a condom or something, and then ran off. And the person was obviously like, this is a flasher situation or a stalker or something, whatever. So they call Arvada PD, and they dispatch Officer Bursley to the location. Officer Bursley shows up. He parks his car. He starts walking towards the Old Town Square. Ronald Troik is the person that was called on. He sees Officer Bursley, parks his car behind him, gets out of his vehicle with a shotgun, runs towards Bursley, shouts something to him, and then kills him with the shotgun. He then walks further north down the same alleyway and starts shooting at unoccupied police vehicles and a juice shop that was full of just random people, and putting, just unloading the shotgun in that direction. Johnny Hurley is on the other side of the Old Town Square in a army surplus store. He sees all this going on. He pulls his gun out, runs out of the store, runs across the square, takes up position around like a big brick wall that's facing this, the same location that Troik had come out of. Troik at this point had gone back to his car, gotten an AR-15 out, presumably to go back and just start shooting more people. He starts walking towards the square. Johnny sees him from behind the brick wall. Johnny shoots and kills him. And then that's where what we knew at the time stops, because the police's statement was that Johnny had walked over after he killed Troik, picked up Troik's AR-15, and then Arvada police came around the corner, saw Hurley standing over Troik with the AR-15, thought he was the shooter, and shot and killed him. That was kind of the story that we were told at the time. Now let's start going to like step by step what actually happened. So immediately after the shooting, a lot of people were like, well, Johnny's a fucking hero. Johnny's loved in the area. He's part of the We Are Change community. He's activist and anarchist. He was frequently out at police brutality protests, anti-GMO protests. He fed the homeless, just like spectacular fucking guy. But we go and we search this, and everybody's like, where's the body cams? And you see multiple articles from the Denver Post. You see articles from CPR. You see articles from Fox 31. All of these are released immediately after the shooting, and the Arvada Press, that all claim that the Arvada PD do not carry body cams. So we're like, okay, that's bullshit. And I don't know why a suburb of Colorado would have police officers that don't have body cams. Again, same thing with Casey Goodson. Columbus PD just happened to not have body cams and then not release any of the dash cam footage. So what's going on here? And then that's where you get to the Arvada police official press statement here on YouTube. So you can search this right here. It was released by Denver 7, Denver News. And this is the official police statement from Arvada County. Now, this whole thing is just this cop talking, and then, just a blank image of them talking about what's going on. But then right at the end, they play the video of the actual shooting. And it's very important here to just look at this image and remember this image and everything that you can see here. And I'm going to play this in its full. So there's Troik. Troik gets out. You can see him chasing after Bursley. That person just materializes out of the ether. You see Troik at the top walk over where he begins firing down the rest of the alleyway. And then you see him returning to his vehicle here. This is where he gets his AR-15 out of his truck. And you see Troik walking back in the direction that he killed Bursley. Beasley, I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'll probably fuck it up. And then the footage stops. And you can see right here, further video or statements related to the officer involved shooting, which is really weirdly cropped out for some reason, will not be released at this time. Any further release will be determined by the Jefferson County District Attorney's Office at the conclusion of the CRRT investigation. So that's the only video we got of the Hurley situation for months. And I have a whole episode of the Unity of Death on here where I brought on some locals and everything, and we talked about how there's got to be more footage. There's got to be something showing, like, you know, there has to be another camera. There has to be something that shows what happened to Johnny. Because if the police's story is true and they have video of it, they will instantly show it. You've seen it in so many other stories where there's a police shooting and there's protests about it, and the police department within 48 hours are immediately like, hey, we're justified. Look at this. But in cases where something suspicious happens, something a little fucked up, the police won't release that information. They'll sit on it for a while. And I had a theory, no evidence, but I had a theory of that's what was going on. So again, just for posterity, before I show you the next part, this is the entire image that was released. Now, either yesterday or the day before that, I think, 2 days ago. 2 days ago, it was announced that the police had investigated themselves and cleared themselves of any wrongdoing, because, of course, that's what they do. And more information was released and given to Ford Fisher from News to Share. And we're going to go through this right now. First off, as you can see here, this is the full video. Now, again, just in case people are confused, compare and contrast the aspect ratio of this. This is heavily fucking cropped to the point where it cuts off probably like this, much of the video. And we'll go through and actually show this. And again, this is graphic. You're going to see people die, just so people know. But I feel like this is important. So once again, there's Beasley walking. See Troy get out of his car. See him shoot and kill Beasley. Once again, all of this was cropped out. Everything in this was cropped out. That's where you go down. He starts shooting down the alleyway. And then you see him come back. Now, this is where the video that they released stopped. But the one that they released now, it continues on. And it shows more of it. And I think this is important to the fact that they felt the need to crop this out on the initial release for some confusing reason. And then you can see around that corner right there, Johnny pops out. And Johnny shoots and kills Troik. And Troik goes down right behind that white car. See Johnny moving over. He picks up Troik's rifle, and you see him go off screen. And then the video ends right here. Once again, we know there's more footage, but this is where it stops. And this moment right here is the last moment we see Johnny Hurley before he tucks out. Now, the security camera didn't turn off, whatever, it kept filming, but this is important to remember. Now, if you remember when we went back and we talked about there not being body camera footage, if you want to go to Ford's thread, he's got other angles of Johnny shooting and everything. They got a couple of them. But here we have body cam footage. They said there wasn't any body cam footage. You can look up all of those articles. They said Arvada County Police do not have body cam footage, and there was no body cam footage of the event, and that the police were not going to be releasing any more video. But here, we have video of Arvada Police. I think the audio kicks on in a second. Okay. See this officer get out. Now, there's something about this video you should notice immediately, and it should be suspicious to you, but I'll get to it. Now, that's an important little detail right there over the call. I can't read too much into it, but they say that there's two suspects, both of them armed, one with an AR-15 and one with a handgun. Now, that call's interesting because according to the police on the scene, the very first thing they saw was Johnny Hurley with Troik's rifle that they didn't know was Troik's rifle. They thought it was Johnny's rifle and Johnny's handgun. So the fact that call came in, that's interesting to me. But to continue on. Okay, so that's the end of that body cam footage. It continues on here. And this is going to include a very important detail. So there you can see, right here, you can see Troik's body. He's on the edge of that curb, right behind where that white car was, like I originally said. That's where he went down. Johnny doesn't get shown, but there's a couple of things we can reference from this. Let me go back just a little bit. So you will notice this yellow pole, and you'll notice this chain link fence. This is important for what I'm going to say later. He reaches over, assumingly pulls the rifle off of Johnny's corpse, which would be immediately to the left, conveniently cropped out. I think this is all important that this shows. Just double check. Yeah, see, they're checking Troik's corpse now. And once again, they never show Johnny. You'll notice the consistent thing is they never, ever show Johnny. Yeah, I think that's all important that this shows. And they're just keeping security of the area, whatever, just doing usual cop stuff. Now, you'll notice with this body cam, have any of you ever seen, I hate that it clicks off when I do this, a body cam footage like this, where it's vertical and tiny slice, like a fucking cell phone? I haven't. And then you could say, oh, well, maybe just Arvada County just has weird body cams. When you scroll down, you'll see another body cam footage from another officer at the scene. It's full screen. Very interesting. So you have another instance of footage being cropped out. And it always happens to be footage of Johnny. Very intriguing to me. And to me, that raises questions. Now, the case I make here is kind of getting to the conclusions of all this for me. Is if they had footage that showed Johnny standing over Troik with a gun, if they had footage of him pointing a gun, if they had footage of him kneeling, pointing the gun, if they had any footage of what Johnny was doing, I feel like they would have released it. But they haven't. And I know for a fact that they have footage of John. They will have footage of Johnny because we can compare and contrast here to where I pulled this up right here. Okay, so this is the alleyway that the shooting happened at. And this is the exact security camera that you've been watching, is right here. Now, you'll notice the fence right there. And you'll notice the dumpster and everything like that. Camera's pointed right at it. You'll also notice if you go to here, You'll see the fence. You'll see the yellow pole. Now, if we go and we zoom out a little bit and we go to street view of the Arvada Farmers Market. I think I was. Yep. Okay. So this is the corner right here. That is the yellow pole right there. Just the 3 yellow poles right there. That's the trash can. The security camera's footage is coming from right here. Troik's body, I'm making sure my cursor is showing up. Yes, it is. Okay. Troik's body is right here. Coming from the camera view that we see, Hurley's body is right here. And you would be able to see that on this camera. And Johnny being shot is probably only just a couple seconds. Come on, catch up. Come on. Get in the circle. My internet going out. I'll be real sad if it goes out in the middle of the stream because it's been happening a lot. Still live? Okay, no. Okay, cool. Come on. Come on. Oh, well, I'll just tune over to my article and show the picture. Boop, 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 boop. Sneak peek of my article. So right here. So this image, that's the last time we see Johnny. Johnny was shot and killed. Couldn't be any more than like 20 to 30 seconds after this when he goes slightly off camera. And his body is located in a place that would be in complete view of this camera. So we know they have footage of it. Now, again, I feel like if Johnny was standing with the rifle like this or something, or crouched or pointing the rifle or distributing any kind of body language or action that would justify the police, even if he was looking away or anything like that, they would show it because there is a lot of questions around this case and they don't want to talk about it. But they won't. They haven't released it. And I've shown that the initial video was edited. The second video they released, once again, cuts off early and wasn't cropped like the first video, but cuts off early. And the only body camera footage that would show where Johnny was located, how he was positioned, anything like that, they once again cropped, which that begs a lot of questions to me. Now, I'm biased. I will admit that. I think that the cops rolled up and without gauging the situation whatsoever, saw someone with a gun and shot and killed them, and ended up actually killing somebody who stopped a mass shooting instead of killing the shooter, and that they were gung-ho about it, and that it might even have been the case that Johnny put his hands up, that Johnny surrendered, that Johnny didn't have the rifle on him or was sit below him, or any thousands of other, cases. And they don't want to show that because they're protecting the officer that shot and killed him. Now, again, that's all inference. I can't prove that, but we know they have the footage and they're not releasing it. And that's suspicious to me. That's very, very suspicious to me. And I can't imagine any other reason why. And it's also important to note that they didn't release any of this footage until after the investigation. None of this was allowed to be viewed by the public. None of this was publicly released. This was all sat on until after all charges had been dropped and the officer that shot and killed Johnny was cleared of all charges. So after we can't take him to court, then we release the evidence. And that's suspicious to me. That's really suspicious to me. And the reason why I bring up these 3 stories kind of together is it kind of goes to show, especially in the Johnny Hurley case, that the whole narrative around the Second Amendment in the United States and kind of the argument that the gun lobby and everything put forward is that the only person who can stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. That was Johnny Hurley. But just like Casey Goodson, the police showed up to a location where a crime was going on, didn't get any information on what was going on, saw someone with a firearm with no other information, and immediately opened fire on them and killed them. I bring up the Casey Goodson, the story because that was a case where it wasn't even an active shooting going on. That was just literally a case of the cops just showed up, saw someone with a gun, and immediately killed them, even though they weren't involved at all. And I bring that up because a lot of people argue of like, oh, well, you know, a shooting went on, the cops were stressed and whatever. So like this wouldn't happen normally. The Casey Goodson thing says to the otherwise. And the fact that nobody's talking about this, because I think Luke made like passing comments about it. Spike retweeted something else about it. But otherwise, the story kind of just went under when it happened and nobody's talking about it now. I think this is very important. I think that people need to be talking about this. And I think pressure needs to be put on the Arvada County Police Department to be like, yo, what the fuck is going on? Because why aren't you releasing this footage? And you know, I think all this needs to be talked about. And these are all kind of like slam dunks for the gun lobby, of especially the Gerdhardt case, of that there's an active attack on the Second Amendment going on right now. But the justification around all of the circle jerking and bullshit around the Rittenhouse case is like, this is a watershed moment for whether you're allowed to defend yourself in the United States. And that's why we need to focus all the energy and attention on it and blah, blah, blah. And that's why the media is talking about it and all this shit. When the Rittenhouse case is way more murky and has way more details and evidence and has like, there's more arguments and sloppy. There's debates that can be had about that. But nobody's talking about this. Nobody's talking about Gerdhardt. Nobody's talking about any of that. So the argument has nothing to do with how important it is for the Second Amendment. Because if it was about how important the Second Amendment would be, you would look into a 21-year-old kid getting charged with terrorism for posting a picture of a gun. You would look in the picture of a black man shot in the back and killed for literally just possessing a firearm while not even committing a crime or being involved with the crime at all and not even pointing it at the police. You think if it was about the Second Amendment, you think Johnny Hurley, who stopped a mass shooter but then was killed by the police because the police immediately view anyone that is armed as a threat and will react violently and negatively to them if they are armed. You think that would be an important thing for the Second Amendment. Nobody's talking about this, but everyone's jerking off about the fucking Rittenhouse case, which makes it suspicious to me. And that's why I make the same argument I made about the George Floyd thing of if you are going to be a reactionary, and I know that Philando Castile is another great one, but all of these cases happened this year, which is why I bring them up. Philando Castile is another perfect fucking example of that, but that was a while ago. These all happened this year, and nobody's talking about them. And you know, to the point I was starting to make, if you're going to be a reactionary, and I know that term has like loaded meaning in like Marxist and leftist circles, but no, when I say it, I mean the literally definition. All you're going to do is react to stuff. You're falling for what the media wants you to do. And that's what I'm seeing everyone doing, because these are like buried stories. Tucker Carlson could talk about any of these cases and they'd blow up. They're huge. They could be covered, but they're not. They're talking about Rittenhouse, because the mainstream media has decided that the Rittenhouse case is the important case, and everyone needs to talk about that, and everyone needs to focus on that, and thus everyone else reacts to the Rittenhouse case. Never mind that there was almost identical moments all across the country that were similar to the Rittenhouse case, whether it be protesters attacking someone or somebody attacking protesters. The Garrett Foster case, the case that happened in Minneapolis of the store owner. There's all these cases that are very similar to the Rittenhouse case. Did those have 60,000 view streams live from the courthouse? No. Were anybody like, did Garrett Foster even get a passing mention by anybody? No. But Rittenhouse is everywhere. So you need to start asking why. And that's kind of the point of all this. And that's what makes me suspicious of people of this is just reactionary shit. Nobody's digging up these stories. Nobody's creating the news. They are reacting to what the mainstream media talks about. And that shit pisses me off. And you can find this on dozens of instances. I'm doing this right now. As far as I know, I'm not even an investigative journalist, but I spent all this time breaking down all these details that you can't find anywhere else without digging through it, of the Hurley case. You have people like Fiorella and Pasta who, are election integrity activists. And instead of just screaming about the media, being like, oh, they say that if you say the election's stolen, you're a terrorist. That's reactionary. What they did was, they went on the offensive. They went to Nicaragua and covered an entirely separate election and looked at how they did their elections and compared and contrasted to America to prove that America's elections are bullshit. That's moving forward. You look at like Shoe on Head. Nobody in the media is talking about pedophilia, and yet she did an entire report on a fucking pedophile website. That's proactive. That's not reacting to what the media talks about. I think Clint from Liberty Lockdown brought it up of like how Tucker Carlson will cover some annoying shitlib BuzzFeed article it'll get like 30,000 times more the views just because Tucker Carlson talked about it. He could be breaking news stories. He could be traveling. He could be doing investigative journalism. He could be doing any of this stuff, but instead he's just reacting to shit. And he's picking these low-hanging fruit and making this giant story when nobody gave a fuck before. That's reactionary bullshit. The other instance I'll bring up is with the lockdown protests. Of you can sit there and react to the mainstream media. You can react to what they're saying. You can break down every little fucking thing Fauci has to say, or you could be proactive. And you could go like Nico House and Jose Galazon did and go interview people that are having lockdown protests. Fiorella and Pasta had NASA scientists that are protesting the vaccine mandates on their show. No one else is doing that. I don't see that. I don't see, Tucker Carlson having like the New York protesters, like the organizer of the New York protests on to talk about what they're doing there. I saw Nico House do that. I'm not seeing, like these major channels do any of this proactive things to find these stories that are important. They're just reacting to bullshit. And, to kind of close this out with the Rittenhouse shit is, again, just stop and think, why is the Rittenhouse story so important? Why is everyone talking about it? Why does it need to be the front of all the news? Why is it on the side of your time bar? It's because it's meant to be there. It wouldn't be there otherwise. The media buries stories whenever they want to, and they make big deals out of other stories when they want to. Even on the same subject, they will do this. So why did they pick Rittenhouse? Why did the mainstream media stop talking about Tamika Mallory and Breonna Taylor and Casey Goodson and all these other black people that were killed by cops and focus on just on George Floyd? Why was the George Floyd trial huge, but all these other ones were buried? That's something you need to think about and understand that if you are being reactionary to the mainstream news, and particularly if you're being inflammatory and reactionary to the mainstream news, you're giving them what they want. And while this is going on, and while they have all your eyeballs and all your attention on this one thing, other things are going on that they don't want you to talk about, that they don't want you to look into. For example, the fact that the Rittenhouse verdict is going to come out right before Ghislaine Maxwell goes on trial. That's totally organic. That just happened. That wasn't planned at all. The fact that whether Kyle gets charged or is let go, that happened, the ongoing media shitstorm that's going to happen after that is going to conveniently go on at the same time that Maxwell is supposed to be taking the stand. You don't think that's fucking weird? You don't think that's awfully convenient? I think you're silly if you don't, personally. So yeah, that's my point, is essentially, to close all this out before I go here, that the Rittenhouse shit is a spook, that it is a giant distraction in theater and nonsense to get you vitriolic and arguing with people and posting fucking memes of people shooting each other and acting like assholes and calling for the jury to be fucking assassinated, and the judge has proud to be American as a ringtone, and that's a proof of white. All this bullshit, all this inflammatory bullshit is on purpose to distract you. And then if you are buying into this and you're falling into this, you are missing more important things on site. That's all I got to say. I can't read this unless I put it up. So I personally suspect that Kyle was deliberately put into that situation to create a psyop. The cops pushed the protesters right. Yes, that's one thing I will close out. I avoid talking about the Rittenhouse thing whatsoever because my opinion on it, everyone fucking hates. The right wingers hate my fucking opinion on it. The left wingers hate my fucking opinion on it. So I avoid it. But I have done threads about how I personally believe that it is true that the police orchestrated that situation because they were caught on camera twice telling people that they were going to push the protesters into the militia and the militia will deal with them. And there's a video of the kind of chubbier leader of the Kenosha Guard going to the organizers of the BLM protest after the shooting and telling them that he was told the police were going to push the protesters into them to cause a conflict, and that's why they left. But Kyle ran off by himself, and while the Kenosha Guard left, he ran off by himself. He came back to that gas station. He was gone. So that's fucked up on their part that they would just, fucking leave a 17-year-old kid in a riot like that. That's why I think they're personally pieces of shit, and I hate the Kenosha Guard, and they should not have been there, and they were nothing but a fucking detriment to everything that happened, which is why the right-wingers hate me, of my opinion on this. But it's to the point that almost everyone on the ground that day knew that it was being set up by the cops to cause conflict. But that's not mentioned in the trial at all. That's not mentioned by any of the main coverage at all. And it's like, and the fact that the FBI had a drone over it. But yeah, I won't go into it too much because, like I said, I literally temporarily deactivated my Twitter account for the whole purpose of, I think the Rittenhouse discourse is fucking disgusting. I think everyone involved in it is fucking disgusting. I'm sick of seeing the memes. I'm sick of seeing people giggling and laughing at death and posting pictures of corpses and shit. That just pisses me the fuck off. But I digress. So yeah, but yeah, spread the fucking Gerdhardt story far and wide. Pre-crime is here in America. Me and Steve from Slow News Day did a whole show about 4 other cases of pre-crime going on where people are getting charged with domestic terrorism over Facebook posts, over Signal messages, over Snapchat stories. Look into the Casey Goodson story, particularly if you are like more of the BLM type or the leftist type. This is a guy, in my opinion, that was literally killed for being black and having a gun, even though he did nothing wrong. And look into the Johnny Hurley case, because this is an instance of police covering their own ass and how effectively that destroys the Second Amendment, because if the cops come into any situation, any area, and you are armed, they will open fire on you. And that's important, and that should be discussed, and no one is. So I appreciate y'all coming on here and watching this. I hope these news stories get more attention. Johnny Hurley was a fucking hero. Casey Goodson didn't do anything wrong, and Gerdhardt didn't do anything fucking wrong. So hopefully that'll go on. I'm going to be releasing the full article with all the details and sources of everything I talked about, which you're looking at right now, tomorrow, probably. I just have to finish it and revise some things. And you can check that out on my Substack that I just created. And I'm hopefully going to fix the shirt situation within a week. So if you, the website's currently down, but if you go to, I'll type it in the chat. You go to my website, when it goes up, probably tomorrow or something like that, you can get a t-shirt if you want. I'm going to be releasing my anarchist handbook series here soon. That's just a bunch of pictures of, famous anarchists with quotes done in kind of my style and everything like that. So that should be up soon. And I don't know, I'm fucking awful at outros. So thank y'all. Love y'all so much. Wonderful rest of your night. Avoid the fucking Rittenhouse discourse because it's poison. Bye.